June 19th delivered two distinct brands of football at the World Cup. On one side, heavyweights were bogged down in chaotic, suffocated attacks. But on the other, we watched teams move in sharp, synchronized strikes, turning defensive pressure into immediate offense. We are watching the absolute limit of holding the ball for the sake of holding it. Turkey's opening match suggested that hoarding possession without a deliberate plan to penetrate the penalty box is a statistical trap, yielding nothing but empty volume. Contrast that static approach with Mauricio Pochettino's United States. The USMNT didn't rely on 90 minutes of passive control. They focused entirely on dictating exactly where on the pitch the ball was played, weaponizing their defensive shape. Success in this tournament demands high press efficiency and the structural intelligence to break a low block. Accumulating raw possession is no longer enough to secure 3 points. To understand exactly how this works, we have to look at the geometry of the USA's pressing machine, the physical gridlock manufactured by the underdogs in Group C, and the glaring expected goals anomaly hanging over Turkey. Today's matches demonstrate that structural discipline and targeted pressing triggers can effectively neutralize teams that rely on traditional territorial control. The environment at Lumen Field provided the perfect backdrop for a relentless, high-energy American start. Australia was immediately pinned deep into their own territory. This tactical board shows Pochettino's aggressive 4-2-3-1 system. Notice the entire block sliding forward in unison. This is a rapid, high-pressing transition designed to completely compress the usable pitch. The U.S. set specific pressing triggers. The moment the ball went wide, the American forwards angled their runs to cut off the return pass, which trapped the Australian center-backs in their own defensive third with zero safe options. The resulting panic from this structural overload forced a critical error. Cameron Burgess turning the ball into his own net in the 11th minute wasn't a random mistake. It was the mathematical result of having his passing lanes entirely erased. By committing the central midfielders to the press, the U.S. system naturally narrowed the pitch. This effectively isolated the right flank, creating a massive, protected corridor for their elite fullback to operate in. This heat map isolates Alex Freeman's advanced positioning. Look at how his activity is heavily concentrated in the final third, capitalizing directly on the vast acres of space manufactured by the midfield's narrow press. In the 43rd minute, Freeman capitalized on this setup. He bypassed the Australian defensive line entirely with an aggressive underlapping run into the box to score the decisive second goal. Pochettino has implemented a transition-heavy model, where individual goals act as the predictable output of relentless, systemic geometry. Over in Boston, the geographic stakes were entirely different, as Morocco clashed with Scotland in a battle of opposing tactical philosophies. Scotland arrived riding massive physical momentum and soaring morale, entirely fueled by John McGinn's historic opening day victory over Haiti. The Tartan army doubled down on their identity. They deployed a rigid, hyper-physical low block designed specifically to disrupt Morocco's rhythm and turn the match into a series of fractured, bruising collisions. To break that gridlock, Moroccan manager Walid Regragui needed a precise countermeasure. He relied on Ismail Saibari to act as the primary engine to outwork the Scottish brawlers. This battle map illustrates how the center circle was won. Saibari absorbed the intense physical pressure, dictated the tempo through short passing combinations, and won the critical duels against McGinn and Billy Gilmore, right in the engine room. When heavyweights are forced to play against hyper-physical defensive setups, victory requires a singular, elite midfield engine to manually win the territory battle inch by inch. Brazil arrived to their match missing their star playmaker to a calf injury, creating a massive tactical void in their central creativity. This tactical board shows exactly how Haiti looked to exploit that absence. They set up a suffocating 5-4-1 defensive block, intentionally erasing all central passing lanes and forcing Brazil out into wide, harmless areas. Haiti's deep block discipline successfully neutralized Brazil's standard passing networks, creating a prolonged period of offensive frustration for the Selección. To solve this, Vinicius Jr. took the leadership mantle. This touch map shows how he bypassed the congested center, isolating himself on the left flank and the half spaces to demand the ball. Utilizing his raw pace, Vinicius forced consecutive 1v1 overloads. He used extreme individual skill to manually dismantle Haiti's defensive structure from the outside in. When a collective attacking structure reaches its limit against a 5-4-1, the game reverts to the efficiency of the 1v1 duel, where a single player's technical ceiling can bypass an entire defensive block. This brings us to Group D, where Turkey and Paraguay faced a do-or-die survival fight following disastrous opening games. This data card from the first round captures the divergence between control and output. Turkey held nearly 3/4 of the ball and generated 30 opportunities, yet ended the match with 0 goals. This spray chart deconstructs why the underlying data contradicts the eye test. The massive volume of shots were fired harmlessly from far outside the penalty box, exposing a complete lack of final third quality and precision. To fix this, the Turkish manager made a mandatory tactical shift, inserting the young Real Madrid playmaker Arda Güler centrally to provide precision and through balls. Güler's specific job was to exploit the half spaces, providing the exact type of incisive passing required to finally turn their dominant possession into high-value expected goals. But Turkey's heavy forward push carried massive risk, as Paraguay deployed a dangerous counter-strategy, relying entirely on Julio and Cisso's speed lurking right behind the high Turkish line. The ultimate lesson of Group D is stark. Astronomical possession statistics mean absolutely nothing without incisive, high-value penetration into the penalty box. June 19th proved that systemic, high-press dominance and structured transitions consistently outperform empty, unpenetrating possession. It also reinforced a critical secondary rule. When those systems fail, or when faced with a deeply entrenched defense, you still need elite, singular talent to pick the lock. This sets up the debate for Player of the Match Day. On this graphic, we compare the immense creative burden carried by Arda Güler against the systemic perfection of Alex Freeman. While Güler effectively carried Turkey's offense on his shoulders and restored their attacking threat, the team's broader structural vulnerabilities remain. Alex Freeman takes the crown. He delivered a flawless execution of his elite defensive duties, entirely locked down the right flank, and scored a decisive goal born entirely from tactical intelligence. Freeman's performance establishes the modern fullback as the primary focal point of a calibrated transition system, a role that demands elite defensive recovery and decisive final third penetration simultaneously.